Right now, outside your window, birds are having a conversation about you, not about the weather, not about food, about you, your behavior, your movements, whether you're dangerous or safe. And they've been having this conversation every single time you've stepped outside. Here's what makes this unsettling. You are not part of this conversation. You never have been, but you are absolutely the subject of it. And it doesn't stop at your yard. The information birds share about you, who you are, whether you can be trusted, has already traveled to birds you've never seen, in yards you've never visited, to entire flocks who have formed a detailed opinion about you without ever once laying eyes on you. You have a reputation in the bird world, a real one, built on evidence, shared across species, passed through neighborhoods like a signal through a network. And it has been growing quietly, precisely, without your knowledge, every single time you walked outside. This video is going to change the way you hear your yard forever, that we're decoding the secret language of backyard birds. What they say, who they say it to, and exactly what they've already said about you. Let's go. The language you never knew existed. Most people think of bird sounds as background noise. The chirping at sunrise, the song drifting from the tree line, the occasional burst of noise when the neighbor's cat wanders through. Pleasant, natural, easy to tune out. That is a mistake. What you're actually walking through every time you step outside is an active, real-time communication network. One that is carrying specific information about specific individuals, including you, across your entire neighborhood simultaneously. Birds do not vocalize randomly. Every sound a bird makes carries structured information, and the birds around it, not just their own species, but dozens of others, are listening, decoding, and acting on that information in real time. Ornithologists call this interspecies eavesdropping, and it is one of the most sophisticated communication systems ever documented in the natural world. Here is the clearest example of how it works. The black-capped chickadee, one of the most studied birds in North America, does not produce a single alarm call. It produces a family of alarm calls, each one encoding specific information about the threat it has detected. The key is in the D notes at the end of its signature chickadee DD call. Those notes are not decoration. They're data. A low-threat predator, a large hawk that isn't fast enough to catch a small bird, gets 2 or 3D notes. A high-threat predator, a sharp-shinned hawk, small, agile, built to catch birds exactly the chickadee's size, gets 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 or 8 D notes fired in rapid succession. Researchers at the University of Montana confirmed this through controlled field experiments. They played recordings of different predator species to wild chickadee flocks and measured the D note count in response. The results were consistent and precise across trials. The chickadee isn't just saying danger. It's saying what kind of danger, how serious it is, and what behavior you should adopt right now. And here's the part that matters. Every bird within earshot understands it. Nuthatches, titmice, warblers, vireos, sparrows. Each species has its own calls, its own signals, but they are all tuned into the chickadee's alarm system as a shared intelligence broadcast. Your yard is not a peaceful natural backdrop. It is a live newsroom, and it's been running 24 hours a day your entire life. You're being watched and filed. Now here is where you enter the story. You're not a predator. You're not a hawk or a fox or a cat. But in the language of bird cognition, you're something that requires a category, unknown variable. And in the bird world, unknown variables are treated as potential threats until the data says otherwise. The first time a bird encounters you, the first time you walk into a yard, approach a feeder, sit on a porch, it makes a call. That call travels. Other birds hear it. They adjust their behavior. They watch you, and they begin forming their own assessment. What happens next is entirely dependent on what you do. If you move unpredictably, sudden gestures, quick approaches toward the feeder, loud noises, the alarm network activates. Calls go out. Birds pull back. The feeder empties. And that collective retreat is itself a broadcast signal to every bird within range. Something about this human is not right. Stand by. But if you move calmly, if you approach slowly, fill the feeder and step back, sit still, and let the bird come to you rather than going to them, something different unfolds. The alarm calls quiet. Contact calls continue. Soft, low, unhurried sounds that mean, I'm here. Nothing has changed. Carry on. Those quiet, easy, unremarkable sounds are just as much a message about you as the alarm calls are. They are saying, this one is fine. Dr. Christopher Templeton at Pacific University studied chickadee alarm behavior for years and documented something that should stop you in your tracks. Birds familiar with a specific human. A researcher who had been visiting a site calmly and consistently over several weeks generated measurably different acoustic responses to that person compared to strangers. The familiar human triggered lower D-note counts, shorter call sequences, a faster return to normal foraging after the person appeared. The birds had developed a file on that researcher, a vocal file, a behavioral record, and they were broadcasting it, updating it, sharing it, every single time she showed up. You have a file too. It has been building since the first morning you stepped into your yard. Every movement you've made has been recorded, assessed, and added to a portrait that now travels through your neighborhood without you. The question is, what does your file say? Your reputation travels beyond your yard. Here is the part most people find genuinely difficult to accept. The birds in your yard are not the only birds who know about you. Bird communication travels in two ways. In real time, through calls that carry hundreds of feet across open air, picked up by every bird in range. And across time, through social learning, where younger birds and neighboring birds absorb the behavioral responses of those around them and adopt those responses as their own. This has been documented most rigorously in crows. Research from the University of Washington, the same lab that pioneered the study of crow facial recognition, found that when a crow learned to identify a specific human face as threatening, that information did not stay with that crow. It spread. Crows who had never personally encountered the threatening researcher began reacting to that researcher's face on sight. The data had traveled through the local crow population through a process researchers describe as cultural transmission of social information. In plain language, the crows told each other, and the ones who were told remembered. This is not a crow-specific behavior. It is a feature of the entire alarm network that connects your backyard birds, and it operates at a far faster speed. When a chickadee sounds a high-urgency alarm in your yard, every bird that hears it, in your yard, in your neighbor's yard, in the yard beyond that, adjusts its behavior. The ripple of that single call can travel through an entire neighborhood in seconds. Which means this: if you have been calm, consistent, and unthreatening in your yard, birds 3 houses down, birds who have never laid eyes on you, may already be slightly less alarmed by your presence than they would be by a total stranger. Because your acoustic portrait has traveled through the network, bird by bird, yard by yard. Your reputation precedes you. It also follows you. If you've been careless, erratic movements, ignored feeders, a cat allowed to roam, that information has traveled too. The birds 2 streets over already have a version of you, assembled from secondhand reports, behavioral echoes, collective memory. This is not metaphor. This is documented biology. You are a known quantity to animals you have never met, in places you have never been, and the file on you is still open. How to become someone the birds trust. Your reputation in the bird world is not fixed. It updates continuously, based on new information, which means it can be rebuilt, it can be damaged. And once you understand what drives it in each direction, you will never approach your yard the same way again. The fastest ways to damage your standing: unpredictability, sudden movements near the feeder, erratic timing, seed gone for 2 weeks, then refilled all at once. Loud activity during early morning feeding hours, when birds are most active and most alert. allowing a cat to patrol the yard. Each of these sends a clear signal through the network. This space is not stable. This human is not safe. The fastest ways to build it. Consistency. Show up at the same time each day. Move at the same pace. Fill the feeder and step back without hovering. Sit still, genuinely still, and let birds come to you rather than chasing the encounter. Stay long enough, quiet enough, that birds stop registering you as something that requires monitoring. Experienced birders call this going invisible. It's the point at which you've been present, calm, and consistent for long enough that the birds in your yard simply stop tracking you as a variable. They carry on around you. A chickadee lands on a branch 2 feet from your face. A cardinal drops to the ground at your feet, not because they can't see you, but because they've decided you don't require their attention. That is not invisibility. That is trust. And the moment it happens, the moment a bird decides you're simply part of the world it lives in rather than a threat it needs to manage, it says so in soft, easy, unhurried contact calls that move through the yard and into the yards beyond it. It tells the neighborhood what it knows. The neighborhood listens. Here is what I want you to carry out of this video. The next time you walk outside and the yard goes quiet, when birds pull back and the feeder empties at your approach, don't feel rejected. Understand what's actually happening. You're being assessed by animals with long memories, using a communication system more sophisticated than most people have ever been told about. The assessment is not final. Every calm morning you show up, you're submitting new information. Every still, quiet moment in that yard, you're updating your file. The verdict the birds reach about you, this one belongs here, is one of the few things genuinely worth earning. Start tomorrow morning.